Hello, everyone. This is Ishani Dalal, Executive Officer of Indo-American Society of Nuclear Medicine. Welcome to our Chai with Scintillating Stars podcast. Here with me today, I have Dr. Deepak Behra, who is a known consultant in field of nuclear medicine. Deepak?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ishani, for the introduction. My name is Deepak Behra. I'm also a part of the executive team at Indo-American Society of Nuclear Medicine and a consultant in the field of clinical development and medical affairs, radiopharmaceuticals. Thank you.
As all of you know, it is our mission to promote the exchange of ideas, knowledge, and technical expertise by welcoming speakers in field of nuclear medicine. It is both my privilege and a true honor to introduce a great leader, Dr. Packard, the president of Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging. He is associate professor of radiology at Harvard Medical School. His accomplishments are so far too great and expansive to list. However, I have tried my level best to summarize here. He has developed and improved radionuclide generator for production of iridium-191. He has also developed copper-64 based radiopharmaceutical and F-18 labeled Rhodamine B. He has been nominated for Harvard Medical School, a Clifford Badger Excellence in Mentoring Award in 2009. Besides his scientific breakthrough, he is also a great mentor who has provided guidance to many scientists, fellows, and research technicians. Since 1997, Alan has been actively involved with the governance of Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging. And under his supervision and guidance, the annual meeting have had a much higher attendance. He is a decorated speaker who has been invited to many national and international conferences, who has journeyed his way up from a Radiopharmaceutical Science Council member all the way to the president. Needless to say, he has multiple grants and publications in several journals. So viewers, please welcome Dr. Alan Packard. Alan?
Thank you, Ishani. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and talk with you.
Thank you so much. We are really happy. So let's start our question answer session. Can you briefly tell us about your journey so far, Alan?
Well, it's a long and winding road. I think like most people in nuclear medicine, I didn't start out wanting to be a nuclear medicine scientist or radiopharmaceutical chemist. I started as an analytical chemist and did my graduate work in copper chemistry. And when I finished my copper chemistry work, I was looking for postdoctoral fellowship, which would give me an opportunity to do some more synthetic chemistry. I've been doing X-ray crystallography. And I had the opportunity to go work with Ed Deutsch at the University of Cincinnati, who was doing technetium chemistry. And like most people in the late 70s, I'd never heard of technetium. I was like, what's technetium? And so I went to work with Ed, and it's the idea of going to work for something radioactive was also interesting, intriguing, because there are, of course, no stable isotopes for technetium. So working with some metal that had been around since the Bronze Age to something which hadn't even been discovered until 1937 was intriguing. So I worked with Ed for a couple of years, and then went to Brookhaven, where I continued working in technetium chemistry. And then I came to Boston, where Ted Travis gave me the opportunity to work on the development of the osmium iridium generator, which you mentioned in your introduction. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was an interesting challenge to work with an isotope that has a 5-second half-life. We didn't get to do much chemistry with iridium, but it was a challenge figuring out how to separate it from osmium in a clinically useful way. And we did 75 or 100 patients studies with that.
Wow.
And I went back to copper chemistry to do copper-64 chemistry, and then came upon some challenges with copper chemistry that I couldn't figure out how to resolve with copper. So we went to F-18 to do that, and that's the work you mentioned with the rhodamines for myocardial perfusion imaging.
I was surprised. I was not knowing before that, before reading your CV. Copper-64 and F-18 Rhodamine B can be used for myocardial perfusion imaging. So that's great. I think all the viewers can learn, the journey is never easy.
No, it's not. It was never, none of it was intentional. Well, it was intentional at each step, but it was never where I am now doing F-18 chemistry. I think if my organic chemistry professors in college were to see me, they go, wait a minute, he's going to blow the place up. He doesn't know how to do organic chemistry.
But you didn't do anything like that. So that's great. Who is your role model or mentor, or who has the most influence on you in your journey?
That's an interesting question. There have been lots of people along the way in different ways. I think probably as a scientist, I think the most influential would be Alan Davison as a scientist and as a professor and as a mentor. He was a pioneer in technetium chemistry. He was at MIT. He passed away 5 or 6 years ago. And he was just an all-around great guy who had a great relationship with his students and was very kind to his students and looked out for their well-being. And another person I think I'd say was Jim Adelstein. He was the dean of students dean of faculty when I came to Harvard. And he's still active. And I think he's just turned 91 this year.
Oh, wow.
And he's sort of the prototypical gentleman scholar in the that you think about in the world of medical research.
Great. My third question is something related to our unprecedented time. Pandemic time is tough for everyone, where history is being made. What are your thoughts on it? And how did you embrace this time as you continue to move forward?
It's an interesting question. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I'm coming to the end of my term as president. And when I decided to run for president of the society in 2018, clearly nobody would have expected this. And throughout this journey, nobody would have expected this. And so it was obviously quite a shock, not just to me personally, obviously, but the entire world. But the thing I find really intriguing by all of this is that when this first happened, the society, we were thinking how negatively this would impact the society. Not in a selfish sort of way, but in the sense that we wanted to make sure the society kept going for the benefit of its members. And I've been absolutely astonished in a most positive way by the way the SNMMI staff and the members of the society, the volunteers who drive all of our work, have stepped up. And we've gotten an amazing amount of stuff done this year. There are just, too numerous to mention things that we've managed to get accomplished. And I say we, and most of this has been done by other people. I have the privilege of leading this group, but the people who actually do the work is just amazing number of people. There are something like 500 volunteers in the society. And without them, none of this would have gotten done.
But they definitely require a leader like you who can guide them properly.
Well, I think it requires dedication to the field. People are very engaged and love the field of nuclear medicine. And it's easy to lead people when they are going in a direction they want to go.
Sure, it requires that dedication for sure. Now moving forward, I think, what were the challenges you faced in achieving your goals?
Well, it depends on which goal you're talking about. If you're talking about being president of SNMMI, I actually never really initially aspired to be president of SNMMI. It just sort of evolved. So there weren't really specific challenges related to that. In terms of science, we all scientists face the same sort of challenges, getting funding and acquiring the equipment and facilities we need to carry out our research. And so that's, I think, a bigger challenge in many ways. I've found the society to be a very supportive place for people who want to be engaged in leadership. So there aren't really any barriers or challenges that I've encountered there. But in the world of science, that's not unique to me. I think all of us face the same challenges of acquiring the funding we need to do our research and the various support staff that we need. We have to have funding to pay the support staff and the equipment we need, things like that.
Okay, if you have to retake this journey, what would you do differently?
It's funny you should ask that, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately as my term as president ends. As I said, this is not something I really anticipated doing. I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, and my 50th high school reunion was last year, and we weren't able to have it because of the pandemic. And I'm sure that most of my classmates would be totally surprised to find out that I was president of the Society of Nuclear Medicine. But I think you can look as you reach certain plateaus in your life, you look back and think about all of the things that you could have done differently. And starting with where I went to college and where I went to grad school and what I studied in grad school. You know, I had originally gone to grad school to do analytical chemistry. I was very interested in chemical oceanography. And it just through a quirk of circumstances, I ended up doing X-ray crystallography instead and became involved in very interested in inorganic chemistry. So there are all of these steps along the way that, you know, it's sort of like this multi-universe thing. There are all these different parallel things going on that I could have done differently. But as it turns out, I ended up doing radiopharmaceutical chemistry. And it's an interesting, each one of those forks in the road, you can think of what would have happened, you know, where you go to grad school or where you did your postdoctoral fellowship, and things would have turned out, or probably would have turned out very differently. When I came to Boston, I had an opportunity to go work with Mike Welch at Washington University, and I was like, do I go work with Mike or do I go to Boston? You know, I wanted to go back to New England because I grew up in New England, and I had spent 2 years in the Midwest at the University of Cincinnati, so I didn't really want to go back to the Midwest. But it was the chance to work with Mike Welch, as Deepak can attribute having gone at Stanford. The chance to work with one of the pillars of the field is quite an opportunity, and you don't turn down those opportunities lightly. And I often wonder what would have happened had I gone to WashU instead of come up here.
So on the same line, do you have any other hobbies? You feel passionate about something else other than nuclear medicine and molecular imaging?
Well, Deepak and I were talking a little bit about that before we got on.
Yeah.
Is that I love to ski, and anybody who's talked to me for more than 5 minutes knows that I love to go skiing. And that's been one of the hardest things this year, is I haven't been able to go skiing because for various reasons. But I don't know. All summer I think about skiing, and I get very depressed when the snow goes away in the spring. People think I'm nuts because I love snow so much, but I did get out snowshoeing a lot. I just love being outdoors, and for some reason I find skiing to be a very freeing exercise. You know, it's wonderful. Like I was talking to Deepak about skiing with Andrew Stevens and out at Vail, because Andrew grew up in Denver, the Denver area. And you go out in the back bowls at Vail, and 4,000 acres of wide open space that you can just rip down, and the view is absolutely beautiful. And it's just, there's nothing quite like it.
Right. Apart from skiing, anything else?
Well, I go kayaking in the summer.
Kayaking in the summer.
Yeah, and my wife and I go on vacation in Maine, and sometimes I go kayaking out in the ocean there, and it's fun to be paddling around and have a seal pop up near you, or sometimes a dolphin or something. That's very cool.
You're more of a water person, whether frozen or liquid.
Yeah, exactly, Deepak. Yeah. I don't care if it's liquid or solid. I just like being on the water. It's fun. It's nice to be out there. I love well, around here, I live about 15 miles west of Boston, so I mostly kayak in the rivers. But I'm fortunate to live about 5 miles from the Great Meadows Wildlife Preserve. It's a national wildlife area. And there's a river that runs right through the middle of it. So you can go kayaking up there, and you see all these wonderful birds and stuff. And it's just very peaceful. It's so much different than being in the laboratory. You know, it's just float through the water and watch all the birds go by.
Wonderful.
Funny that you mentioned, I like to walk in nature too. I think because all the day I see is just gray images or color images, whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
All the time. So I understand exactly what you mean.
Well, you should come to Boston, to Framingham, and go for a walk this evening. I just heard from a friend of mine that there's a bear in the neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you want nature? We've got a bear.
Bear.
It's a black bear.
I'm like, oh, wow. I have seen those in the past when I was in Smoky Mountain area, but here I'm happy with deer and then few rabbits, you know.
Yeah, deer and rabbits are less scary. But
how nuclear medicine has impacted you?
Well, that sort of circles back to all your previous questions, because had I not found nuclear medicine and radiochemistry so interesting, my career would have been a very different thing. I would have probably ended up as a copper chemist somewhere at some mid-sized state university or something, studying copper chemistry. And it's responsible for my entire career, basically, in terms of impact. it's responsible for me being where I am today in terms of leadership in the society. You know, I found something that I just found intriguing, and I love puzzles, and chemistry is just one massive puzzle, trying to figure out how to make something that you want to make, and doing nuclear medicine, developing imaging agents adds another layer to that puzzle. You not only have to make it, you have to figure out how to get it to go where you want it to go, and try and keep it where it's supposed to be and not go where it's not supposed to go, and all those sorts of things. So it's a very rewarding when it does work, and very frustrating when it doesn't, of course. But it's an intriguing problem to be faced with.
Okay, can I ask you last question, or maybe
Sure.
two more questions? I think I can.
Okay, no, just one.
I just want to know more about you. That's why. So, what is your parting message you want to give to younger generation?
Well, I think that sort of goes back to what I just said about why I became engaged in nuclear medicine, is find something you love and grab it. If you are interested in nuclear medicine, find some part of that specialty that intrigues you, be it if you're a clinician, nuclear cardiology, or theranostics, or whatever it might be, and just work your butt off at being good at it. And, you know, it has to be something you really love, or you're not going to want to spend that much time as you need to do to be good at it. And that's all. I just say if you're not doing what you really want to do, you're not going to be successful at it. So find that and do it.
Yeah, find your passion, I should
Find
say.
your passion, yeah.
And then you will carve your own path, I can say.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. Find your passion, and the rest of it will follow.
Okay, that's a wonderful message, and that's the intention of doing this podcast. So, you know, viewers or the younger generation can learn from your journey, from your experience, and, you know, it will help them in their journey. My last question is little different than all other questions. If you have, not virtual, if you have a chance to go out with any celebrity, whom will you choose?
Okay.
Any celebrity, you can choose.
This is a really off the wall answer, but you know, you asked me before what I'm really interested in. One of the things that I'm not really a celebrity person, but if I had a chance to meet Jimmy Page, he's the guitarist for Led Zeppelin, or what used to be Led Zeppelin. I fell in love with Led Zeppelin when I was in high school in the late 60s. And I've never let go. I just think they're such an incredibly powerful band. And that Jimmy Page and Robert Plant have been going on and still making great music. What is that, 50 years now, 55 years, something like that. It's just incredibly impressive. And so I think, you know, of all the people I could meet, you know, if Jimmy Page, you know, that would be cool. I'd probably be so starstruck, I wouldn't be able to even say hello, but I think that would be cool.
It's wonderful to have you, Alan, to know more about you. A lot of things I learn about you, skiing, you know, starting from skiing, I should say, a lot of different aspects of your journey. And do you have any other questions for us, or do you want to cover something or say something which I have not covered in this interview?
I think you covered it all. That was great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and Deepak this evening.
Thank you, Alan. It was a pleasure to hear you speak. I'd love to talk to you sometime further in detail of about a few thoughts and ideas that I have, but let's take that off of.
Sure, anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you both.
Thank you.